Go through stories of the day and the weekend, superseded in the main by the information over the last 2-3 hours, which has arrived at various media outlets. The opening statement of Donald Conway, President of the FAI, for Wednesday's Oireachtas Committee hearing. Amongst that information, which had some interesting points, including that they've advised Sport Ireland, the FAI that is, have advised Sport Ireland that recent public comments made by the FAI did not accurately reflect the board's level of awareness of the existence of the €100,000 payment to the association in 2017. Emmett Malone in the Irish Times pointing out that the FAI had a number of statements in March 17th and 18th, including the one on the 18th, where they talked about that the bridging loan was made in the best interests of the FAI in 2017, when it experienced a short-term cash flow issue. And crucially, it does go on to say the board of the FAI has been kept fully informed in relation to this matter at all times. So that was an FAI statement back in March, and now they've advised Sport Ireland that those statements did not accurately reflect the board's level of awareness of the loan back in 2017. It's maybe the most headline-grabbing piece of news, but certainly we've had it confirmed that John Delaney, Ray Walsh, Eddie Murray, the Honorary Treasurer, and Pádraig Traynor, the Chairperson of the FAI's Legal and Corporate Affairs Committee, will all be at the Oireachtas Committee on Wednesday. And they add that no disrespect was intended to Sport Ireland by the lateness of the letter that Sport Ireland were looking for with information about the €100,000 loan. And if you go to offtheball.com, Off the Ball have access to a number of the letters between Mr. Conway, FAI President, and John Tracy at Sport Ireland, offtheball.com, and you can read through some of the exchanges, including John Tracy on the 4th of April writing to Donald Conway and saying things like, "We're extremely disappointed at the timing of the letter." That was the FAI letter, which only arrived the night before the Oireachtas Committee last week, the Sport Ireland Oireachtas Committee, and goes on to say that the content of the letter falls far short of what was both requested and expected by Sport Ireland. We ask again for an explanation on the circumstances surrounding the loan and its payments. So you can read those full letters between the FAI and Sport Ireland at offtheball.com now. Dan McDonnell will be along presently. We'll pick through various aspects of Donald Conway's opening statement, some of the letters between Sport Ireland and the FAI, and also the Jonathan Hall Associates report, which is also out there today, as of today. And included in the Jonathan Hall Associates report is the recommendation that the announcement that John Delaney was becoming Executive Vice President maybe happen on the day of the Gibraltar game, March 23rd, which is kind of surprising, I think, and I wonder will that be picked up on Wednesday. We'll come to all that in a moment, but Gary Breen is waiting patiently, probably confused, and you're wondering what the hell's happened over here in the last 4 or 5 hours, Gary. But there you go. Well, if you go to sleep for a few hours, you probably missed something to do with the FAI lately.
There seems to be a statement all the time. I'm glad that Dan's coming in to dissect it rather than me. I'm glad you're just going to ask me about the football and not all that nonsense.
Well, we'll get to all that. So let's talk about the football then, because it was an interesting weekend. It kicked off, obviously, with Liverpool on Friday. We'll come to that later on. But yesterday, we had the Everton-Arsenal game live here. I know, obviously, you're an Arsenal fan and you watched them closely.
In my youth.
Yeah, in your youth. They weren't very good.
I'm not a big fan of them at the moment. I think that's been well documented at the time. But I've loved the work that Emery's done. More than anything, he's added a bit of organisation, a bit of discipline, but the old failings are there. And I don't care how good a coach you are, the problem you have there is you can't rely on that spine through that team. This group of players are not at the level required. In terms of technical ability, yes, but in terms of mental strength, no. That's evident in the fact that they're so badly performing away from home, yet to keep a clean sheet all season. And yet going into this game, I just hope that they would have seized the initiative in the fact that 10 consecutive home wins, they've got themselves into a great position. They took advantage of the kind of self-imploding that Tottenham have done, as has been the case with most seasons. And ultimately, I believe that Arsenal are the 6th best team in the Premier League, but Emery had got them to 3rd and had a real opportunity to cement that. And once again, those failings come back again. And when the pressure's on, they just can't handle it. So you're in that interesting position where you think Emery has done enough to justify his appointment and to inspire a bit of confidence, but he can only work with what he has, and no manager could get them to a point where they're doing any better than realistically they are at the moment. Is that the general feeling? Well, certainly, I wouldn't kind of say that no other manager could do better. I think someone like Guardiola could do better because I think he's an exceptional manager, probably the best out there. But in terms of what Emery's done and the managers that were available to Arsenal, in terms of replacing an iconic Wenger, I know that the last few years went bad, but he has inherited Emery, an unbalanced, ill-disciplined squad who are probably the most self-rewarding group of players you've ever seen in your life in terms of high-fiving each other when they're doing particularly well. But when the real tough questions are asked, and that's ultimately what you get when you travel away from home, because when Arsenal come to town, it's obviously a big show, of course it is, and they just can't cope with it. I mean, that was basic football, that back three couldn't deal with. Calvert-Lewin, who everyone says is not good enough to lead the line at Everton, I think he's a fabulous young man in terms of the qualities he has. But he just gave them the runaround. They just couldn't cope, and it was embarrassing at times.
So what do they need in the summer?
They need a massive overhaul. There's a massive reboot needed at Arsenal anyway. I think the very fact that Emery comes in, Gazidis brings Emery in, and you're thinking, okay, stay there, steady the ship, help your manager. But then he goes off to Syria with AC Milan and literally just walks away from it. They had a brilliant acquisition in terms of a headhunter, Mislintat, who was responsible for a lot of those Borussia Dortmund stars that we've seen come through. His nickname was Diamond Eye in terms of how good he was spotting. He's gone now. They tried to get a director of football. It hasn't worked out. Edu's the latest name we're seeing as an ex-Arsenal player, as someone who worked under Emery at Valencia. But that hasn't come to fruition. But ultimately, and this is why it's so important that they get into that Champions League, they need a massive reinvestment into that squad, because too many of those players, they're good players, don't get me wrong, but they're not good enough to take Arsenal back where they need to be, and that's challenging at the top end of the Premier League.
So who at Arsenal now dictates which players are targeted and bought, I wonder?
Well, I don't think they could flex their muscles, certainly. If they don't make the Champions League, it'll have a massive bearing on it. But I think we're led to believe there's only 50-odd million available to spend. So obviously Emery's going to have to work his magic. He's going to have to find young players with value and develop them. Now, listen, he's a manager who puts a lot of stock and quality in terms of his work on the training ground. So I have no doubt about that. But in terms of being able to go out and buy the ready-made, the quick fix, Arsenal just can't do that right now.
Seamus Coleman was decent again.
Listen, so much has been said about Seamus Coleman, Joe, and a lot of people saying about his injury, and of course it takes a lot to get over that type of injury. It does, but Seamus, being Seamus, just said something with real common sense. And listen, sometimes you're just not in good form. And I think we're too quick to say, listen, he's 30 years of age now, it's a bad leg break. A leg break doesn't really have a massive effect on you in terms of slowing you down if it heals properly. It's not like a bad hamstring injury, a bad Achilles injury, a knee injury. He should be able to get over that. He should be able to get to what we've seen before. But let's not forget that he's not a 20-year-old now. He's approaching his 30s now. He has to manage himself better. But I had no doubts that he'd get back to a level that we normally associate with him.
And is he still on the comeback trail?
Well, listen, in terms of that, how bad that, and I think more than anything, the injury, a physical one, yes, but mental issues as well. We've seen it before with the likes of Aaron Ramsey. It takes a long time to get over those type of leg breaks. Of course it does. And I've seen it firsthand, the likes of Colin Healy, who was destined for big things with Ireland, and certainly in league level when he came to Sunderland, got a terrible bad break, didn't really recover from it. And I think that may be to do with medicine back then, but certainly Seamus would have had the best of treatment in terms of modern day thinking, in terms of getting it back. So he has fully healed physically. I believe he has now mentally. He's just not in great form at certain stages, but he'll get it back.
Okay. So that was yesterday. The weekend kicked off with a bang on Friday night. Mo Salah stepping up. Wow. It was just an amazing moment. I can only imagine what Liverpool fans are going through right now. I'd say it's a lot of fun and a lot of heart palpitations. And a lot of people, I'm sure, were screaming, "You've got to pass, you've got to pass, you've got to pass." Oh my God, what a goal.
That was an amazing goal. It really was. Bearing in mind, this is Salah, the type of goal you saw from him last year. It's not the Salah that he's been kind of wasteful in front of goal this season, struggling. I think it's 8 games without a goal, but he drove through. And you have to give credit to Bertrand, the last defender, who made it difficult, didn't make it that obvious to make that pass. And Bertrand, he could see that Salah was running at him. He got him onto his right side, kind of. He knew that he had recovery midfielders to put a bit of pressure on him. But as soon as Salah just worked it onto that inside left and whipped it, bearing in mind the goalkeepers read the situation, that finish had to be inch perfect. And it was off the inside of the post. I mean, it was such a great goal. It really was.
It was just lovely. Cultured, and as you said, he whipped it and got his body shape just right. And under the pressure, in an amazing moment. I was we'd Kev Kilban at the Everton game yesterday, and we were just chatting after the match, reflecting on the weekend. The romantic in you would look at Liverpool and wonder if there's an air of destiny about this season, and there's just something special happening. And yet the more logical viewer would look on and think, well, look at the way Liverpool are winning games too often, and look at the way City are cruising through games, and surely it just can't continue. Do you fall down on the side? Are you slightly confused?
No, not really. I don't really go along with the argument that they're getting late winners against a run of play or anything. I think it's controlled, it's measured, there's no panic. I was at the Fulham game when they gave away that silly equaliser, but within about 15 minutes to go, you're suddenly thinking you can't drop points here. I didn't see any panic from the players. I certainly didn't see it from the bench. They went about their business the same way, kept knocking on the door, knowing, believing that they find an opening. I think, listen, you're looking at the Lloris mistake and you're thinking, oh, wow, maybe perhaps then destiny is looking favourably on Liverpool. But in terms of the Southampton game, as soon as he made those changes, I couldn't see anything other than a comfortable Liverpool win. I really couldn't. And I know the clock's ticking down and you're thinking, is it going to be one of those days? But there's a difference about this Liverpool team. They are in far more control of games than they ever were last year. I know everyone's saying about they don't have the goals from that front three that they did last year, but it was more end-to-end stuff. They control the game now. They dictate. They get that opposition really backed onto their 18-yard box. And as a result, 90 minutes of defending in and around that area, bearing in mind they have the quality that they have, you would back them to find a way through, and they have done.
But there's so much talk about their best midfield. What's your favourite Liverpool midfield or shape?
Well, listen, I would have been one of those guys who would have seen that Keita had come in, we'd been bought and thought, listen, this is the missing link in terms of a midfielder who can beat people, plays 1-2s around the box. I know he did something similar when he got his penalty, but it wasn't given. But he's been a massive disappointment. He really has. And I would still give him the benefit of that to say, listen, I don't care how good you are in any league around the world, in Europe, the Premier League asks questions that no other does. So it's a difficult one. But I still wouldn't look further than Henderson, Milner in that midfield, Wijnaldum, Fabinho. It would be any three from those four. And the reason I say that, I know that at times Liverpool fans are saying Henderson lacks creativity. But just love him for what he can do and don't hate him for what he can't. And what he gives you is that security. He allows just to sit in there. He allows those fullbacks then to go forward without any fear that they're going to be caught in a counter-attack. And he just sits alongside Fabinho, gives you energy, stops the opposition play. And I think as we go deeper into these competitions now, certainly in the Champions League quarter-finals, with the big games against Chelsea, I think Henderson, the likes of Milner, will get the nod in those games. In fact, I've got no doubt they will.
Well, wasn't it telling, I think, Munich away, he went with the three workhorses, and it was Fabinho on the bench. I mean, that was maybe an insight into how Klopp sees things as well. And yet, a lot of people credit the Henderson injury and Fabinho coming on has been one of the reasons Liverpool controlled that game so well for huge parts of it. I think the average Liverpool fan wants to see Fabinho on the pitch. Is there any of those, you said it's maybe three of those four. Is there any one or two that you absolutely have in your best 11?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, listen, I would have Fabinho holding, just screening. Yeah. And then I'd certainly have Wijnaldum in terms of the energy, wanting to run ahead of the football in terms of late runs. I know he hasn't been at his top over the last month or so, but still I'd want him in there. And then it's Milner or Henderson as the third one. Right, okay. That's how I would go more than it. And people say about that Bayern Munich game as well. Liverpool controlled that. Listen, it's all well and good saying about the midfielders made the difference, but the likes of Salah, who everyone was critical of, didn't score. He put in a brilliant shift. That was a brilliant team performance. Yeah. Do you put, I don't know how much stock you put in something like leadership. It's funny, I was watching just Gary Neville's Soccer Box, which is on all the time on Sky, and he was chatting to Jamie Carragher on an episode last night, and he was talking about the end of his career and how the manager likes you around the dressing room and there's so much you can give, but you ultimately feel at the crunch moments on the pitch, leadership doesn't count for all that much. You need to be really doing it. I think Jordan Henderson, and so often I see him screaming to everybody and gesticulating wildly and all that kind of stuff. And I wonder how much stock you put in that, being vocal on the pitch and leadership, quote unquote, because I look at Milner and I think he gives them so much more than Henderson. Yeah, listen, I totally agree with you there in terms of leadership, but there's a different type. I mean, that guy shouting and hollering is a cheerleader, not really influencing the game. I see through that all the time. I'm on about a problem solver as a captain, as a leader, where things are not going quite right. The bench can't get the message on, and you might just say to your midfielders, just sit in here a little bit. Let's just recover, or let's really go after them. We can sense something. Little changes in set pieces where you've done all your work throughout the week. The coaches will give you your jobs, but there's a slight tweak that they haven't seen. You need to be able to solve that before the issue is in the back of your net. That's leadership. That's the type of thing you want. And I can understand what Gary Neville's saying in terms of having him around the team or such, or that aging player. But you have to be able to contribute on the pitch, because otherwise you're a liability. Certainly at the level that he's playing at. I mean, Christ, you're playing for Manchester United. They don't carry anyone. They've got leaders in themselves. And it's not, I totally agree with you, Joe. I'm not one for those. There's a lot of different ways to captain. There's the type of captain who's there because he's the media darling. He does all the interviews afterwards. There's the other captain who does a lap of honour after every game, capping every single fan in the ground, shaking their hands, and they get the captaincy. The crowd think, oh, he's brilliant. But I think you can go into a change room, Joe, and you could literally do a vote and say, who's the captain here? Regardless of who wears the armband, who is the actual leader of this team? And I think more often than not, you'd have everyone agreeing that it's that person over there.
I'm already looking over at Virgil van Dijk lovingly.
Listen, he's a class act, isn't he? I mean, the frightening thing is that I think he's going to get better. And I've been banging the drum about him for a long time. I'd seen him in the Eredivisie. I'd covered that league quite a lot. And I could see the natural physical class that he had, the type of ingredients you need to be a top class centre half. Then he goes to Scotland and it was too easy. That's not being disrespectful for the league, but he gets into bad habits. He comes down to Southampton, he brings them bad habits with him, and ultimately what that is that he takes too long to get into good defensive positions because he knows the opposition not going to hurt him. Celtic can see the majority of the ball. He quickly learned about that at Southampton. He's gone to Liverpool, gone to a completely another level, and the only thing now that kind of is stopping him going down, well, listen, I think he potentially will go down as one of the all-time best centre-backs within the Premier League. But to actually challenge for that title of the best we've ever seen, it's just his concentration levels. At times, the game's too easy for him. And I think that's an argument that's been aimed at him throughout his career. That because it is so comfortable, he maybe switches off a little bit. And against the top players, they'll just be able to get in against you. And I think at times that goal against Southampton, maybe he should be dominating his midfielder a bit. Naby Keita staying with a runner, maybe saying to Matip, don't go so wide, don't split us at centre-half. Little things like that.
Champions League knockout stages are here. They basically just never fail to deliver lately. You know, they're just outrageously good. It feels for the last 4, 5, 6 years.
The Champions League is just an incredible competition. It really is. And listen, we're having a fabulous Premier League title race. Of course we are. We've not seen anything in terms of the kind of drama. You feel that if anyone drops a point, blah blah blah. But the Champions League, you look forward to it, and when it comes round, see some of them ties. I think Liverpool against Porto. I think Porto, I've been led to believe, listening to their camp, wanted Liverpool, probably the only team who did, to avenge that 5-0 drubbing of last season. I'm not quite sure they'll be able to do that. But then you look at some of the other matchups, Spurs against Manchester City. I think you go for Manchester City big time, the type of form that Spurs are in, 1 point out of 15 in the Premier League. But everyone's talked about the drama and the fact that the delay of this stadium and how frustrating it's been. I think this delay and the timing of this stadium now has been the perfect boost for them, because their form's been so poor. They're now suddenly got into their new stadium. They get that home wheel. They look like they're full of confidence again. And I know that Kevin De Bruyne and the Manchester City squad are saying, listen, the stadium doesn't beat you as such, but it is a massive boost for Tottenham. I do believe that. But I think that's going to be a top-class game. I think Pochettino, initially, when Guardiola came over, I always watched a game at White Hart Lane when Tottenham was so dominating that last season. And Guardiola's City couldn't cope with Spurs' energy. And it was interesting then that he changed the dynamic, brought himself 2 athletic fullbacks to replace the likes of Zabaleta, Clichy, Kolarov on that left-hand side. And then suddenly, Pochettino goes to Manchester City the following season, tries to do the same tactics, a high press against them, got absolutely battered. So it'll be fascinating to see what he thinks is his best tactics now going up against City.
Well, on that point, I was just having a look on the Guardian website. Jonathan Wilson was writing about the game, and he said when Spurs pressed high against City at the Etihad last season, hemming them in at every goal kick, they found the ploy negated by the long passing of Ederson. He hit 19 passes. His season average was 4 per game, but he hit 19 in that game brilliantly. They lost 4-1. And then he says, in 2 games against City at Wembley since, Spurs have seemed unsure in their approach. On both occasions have been a little tepid, losing 3-1 and 1-0. So that sets it up.
Well, this is the thing. I think he's got great joy against the previous goalkeeper, Bravo, in terms of squeezing it high, saying, okay, you're good enough to hit these massive diagonal passes that a number 4, a playmaker, would struggle to make. And then you work from there. City are so expansive instead of spreading out. You'd win the ball back, you're breaking in on goal, your 2v1 situations, it's all in your favour. Suddenly you do that, you've got a goalkeeper who's literally taking 4 or 5 of your players out of the game with one ball, then creating 1v1 situations for the like of De Bruyne, Sterling. You're bang in trouble. You can't do that. It's football suicide.
So that's going to be on Tuesday night. And then Wednesday we have Barcelona coming to Old Trafford. Messi and Suarez scored in the final 5 minutes against Atletico at the weekend for Barca. Messi now into 10 straight seasons where he's scored 40 goals or more, which is just silly. It's difficult in this job to think of new things to say about Messi, but he is still so clearly the story and still clearly the best player in the world. You kind of have to keep talking about him. Came off the bench against Villarreal as well and scored a free kick to get them back in the game. So he is still the key man, maybe more so than ever. Maybe more. There is more of a reliance on Messi than ever, it seems. They're clearly not the team they were, but he's pretty close to the player he was.
Listen, this is a debate that will rage for years and decades and generations, who's the best player ever. But for me, it will always be Messi. I've loved what Ronaldo's done in terms of creating himself into such an iconic player in terms of what he can do. He can head the ball, kick it. But Messi's just a genius. He's incredible. And you're talking about Barcelona now, 11 points clear at the top of La Liga. They're looking for their 8th title in 11 years. I mean, that's staggering, bearing in mind you're up against Real Madrid. And they just seem like they're in such a good flow. And I think about iconic games, certainly growing up, Man United v Barcelona, Mark Hughes scoring that goal in the Cup Winners' Cup in about 91, I think, at a really tight angle. But then I always remember asking Steve Bruce, who's a teammate of mine at Birmingham around about 96 time. I asked him about that game in 94 at the Nou Camp. They lost 4-0. He always tells a great story. I don't know if he's ever revealed it in a book or something, but I certainly haven't seen it. But he said they were lining up in the tunnel and they were walking out. And Romario was getting a ball and flicking it on one shoulder to the next, just flicking the ball over his head, walking along the tunnel. He turned to Pallister and said, we're in a bit of trouble here. And they were. I mean, that was an iconic Barcelona team at the time. Koeman was playing, Guardiola. But Romario, Stoichkov, those type of players, it was an incredible game. So listen, United have quality players. They'll probably think that on their day they can do it. But I still believe that Barcelona will be the strongest in that tie.
United have 8 days preparation, which is an interesting one.
Massive.
You know, that's a really nice thing, I'd say, as a professional team to get together and plan this whole thing out.
Yeah, it is, and I think Solskjaer doesn't get enough credit for tactically how good he's been in terms of prepping his team. Notably, that game, the big defining moment in terms of will he, won't he get the job when he went to Spurs and they had a brilliant first half performance. I know De Gea kept them in the game with 11 saves as such, but nevertheless, that time on the training ground just allows you as coaches to dissect, if you can find it, any weaknesses in Barcelona's game. You're going to have to watch as many games as possible. Your analysts will come with you and say, listen, there's a vulnerability here, whatever. And then you've got to put a plan in place and execute on a training ground. Then you're relying on the quality players. Can they do it on the big stage? But certainly that amount of time is something you would definitely need when you're coming up against Barcelona. And
we're looking at Manchester United of late, 3 defeats in 4. The losses to Wolves, twice. And then the Watford game was hardly inspirational. Is there any worry that the Solskjaer bounce has almost normalised and the memories of Mourinho are a long time ago and they're back to maybe more of a level that we might expect? Or are you expecting them to come big again?
Well, listen, it remains to be seen. Ultimately, I look at that and saying the concern for me with this United team is, are they reverting to type in that some of them are not good enough for Manchester United? And listen, we talked about Arsenal. I think Man United players are far superior to the Arsenal ones.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference, Joe, between being a top player and playing for Manchester United, coping with that pressure, coping with that expectation levels that you have to win things. Now, we're talking about a good season, Man United finishing 4th. That shows you the reduced status of United at the moment, that second in previous years, certainly when I was playing against them, was considered failure. So I know Solskjaer's got big ideas that they should be challenging, saying all the right things, but I think the last part of this season, certainly those guys who have improved under him, will still be watched by everyone there to say, listen, are these guys actually good enough to get United back where they believe they should be?
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be an amazing couple of days football. Gary, we'll leave it there. Thanks a mil.
Joe, get on Hazard's goal. It is unbelievable.
Thank you. I've seen it. It was amazing. There were people in the office, and I won't name names or point fingers at Richie McCormick, who were giving out about the lack of tackling, but they couldn't tackle him. His feet were too quick. They didn't want to give away a penalty.
Wow, anyone get on that goal today, because that is goal of the season all day long. It's unbelievable. Listen, you say about the midfield, West Ham, why did they leave that area? But I don't care. There's about 5 or 6 players around him. In the space of about 5 yards, he beats them all and finishes. What a player.
Okay, so goal of the season.
Up there, without a doubt. And the problem you have now, Chelsea, is that they'll love that goal, but that's the type of goal that Real Madrid start convincing themselves, yeah, we actually do want him now, because they've been reluctant. Zidane's gone back there. Doesn't bode well for Chelsea, coupled with the fact that Hudson-Odoi is not signing a contract. Real crossroads for Chelsea right now.
Yeah, Florentino Perez has just said sign him about 25 minutes ago, I think. Listen, thanks, Emil. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Joe. Good luck, mate.
Gary Breen there, taking a short break. Dan McDonnell has arrived. He said, a hell of a day, everybody. You think you've had a tough day. Dan McDonnell today. So he's going to talk us through a busy afternoon when it comes to the FAI once again in just a sec.
Football on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Boyle Sports. Now with same-day withdrawals to your Visa debit card.
The Pat Kenny Show.
On tomorrow's programme, as well as all the breaking news, does action against climate change spell a grim future for Irish farmers? As Mozambique buckles as it bears the brunt of Cyclone Idai, we meet an Irish aid worker who's just returned from there, and debut author Isabella Hamad on her enchanting new novel, The Parisian.
The Pat Kenny Show.
With MasterCard.
Tomorrow morning at 9.
On News Talk.
Am I getting ripped off? Is there a better deal out there? Did I forget Mum's birthday? We all have that doubting voice in our head that loves to question everything. But if you're an Electric Ireland electricity and gas customer, it's already quiet because you know you're getting the best long-term value on the market. Not a customer? Then call us on 1850 30 50 90 or visit electricireland.ie today and lose that doubting voice. Electric Ireland. Smarter living.
Estimated annual bill €1,736. Average consumption, urban 24-hour, discounted unit rate, standing charge, PSO levy and carbon tax. Residential, dual fuel, direct debit and online billing. Terms and conditions apply. See electricireland.ie/EAB. Rated 1st of April 2019. Subject to change.
The Audi Approved Plus used car sales event is now on. Discover your premium used Audi today with a 12-month warranty and exclusive 3.9% APR, available only at your local authorised Audi dealer. It doesn't have to be new to be everything you've dreamed of. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement and subject to lending criteria. Deposit required. Terms and conditions apply. Volkswagen Bank GmbH Branch Ireland is authorised by the Federal Financial Supervisory Authority in Germany and regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland for conduct of business rules. Visit audi.ie/used cars.
And it all comes down to this. The winning parts of the Dubai duty-free Irish Open.
Come experience all the excitement of this year's Dubai duty-free Irish Open at the spectacular Lahinch Golf Course from the 3rd to the 7th of July. Watch the drama unfold as Larry, Fleetwood and Harrington take to this dramatic and challenging links course. Experience more with a fantastic festival of golf, live music and delicious food and drink. DubaiDutyFreeIrishOpen.com.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
Now, Dan, breathe. It's all right, Dan.
I'm happily breathing, Joe, here.
You were meant to be here at 7. But
7.
hey, 7 for 9:30, right?
Yeah, you know, it's before the end of the show. I took a phone call at 7 o'clock.
No, that's true. Look, that's true. So let's tease through some of this again. A few different pieces of information. Have these been leaked or was this deliberate?
I'm getting used to how things operate here in terms of an Oireachtas committee. I think obviously there seems to be some degree of procedure, protocol when it comes to this. Yeah. In the sense that last week before John Tracy appeared on the Wednesday and before Sport Ireland appeared on the Wednesday, you know, the opening statements were dispersed in advance.
Oh, were they? Okay.
So clearly people, the opening, it seems to be a part of the thing that the opening, I mean, I suppose it is a form of leaking, but it seems to be a widespread thing that people are armed with this information when they go in. So they have their opening statement and some of the correspondence. So I'm guessing it's something that is part of the parliamentary process. But it's certainly, like today, I didn't expect this today. I think today, I sort of, you got wind a bit earlier that there would be, I mean, the hearing is Wednesday, so you thought a lot of this stuff might be tomorrow, but, it would be Tuesday that you would get a lot of this stuff. But also, I did think there would be an FEI statement today. I just didn't realise there was going to be multiple FEI statements, correspondence. Getting through it is a bit of a challenge.
No doubt. What we have are a few different things. We have the opening statement that Donald Conway, president of the FEI, is going to give on Wednesday. And it confirms as well that Ray Walsh is going to be there, the interim CEO, that John Delaney is going to be there, Executive Vice President, of course. Eddie Murray, Honorary Treasurer, and Padraig Traynor, Chairperson of the FAI's Legal and Corporate Affairs Committee, and obviously Donald Conway, who's going to give this opening address, which is very much just a preamble, as we saw with John Tracy last Wednesday, and then the questions will define how this whole thing goes.
Yeah.
Talks about a few different things. No disrespect was intended by the lateness of the letter to Sport Ireland on the 2nd of April, or its brief contents. They then go on to say, and I think we can say now, they then go on to reveal that Grant Thornton has been engaged by the board of the FAI to conduct an internal review of the association's books, records and ledgers, and they have been on site at the FAI since yesterday week. And we can take this as Grant Thornton looking at the €100,000 payment or loan, depending on the various words being used by the FAI. The Mazars review is a bigger review. People will get confused by all this very quickly. There is the Mazars review, which has been in the public arena for a while now, and it's to look at the overall situation. So the Mazars review is to look into everything. This Grant Thornton audit looks to be about the €100,000 loan, and of course there's, and we'll come to it in a second, there's the Jonathan Hall Associates report, which is to do with, you know, justifying the move from CEO to Executive Vice President for John Delaney. But it seems, and the only new information today is that Grant Thornton seemed to be in there and have been in there for the last 8 days, looking at the accounts and the books and the ledgers, all in relation really to this €100,000 loan. And based on the letters between the FAI and Sport Ireland, which you can read at offtheball.com, certainly the FAI, when asked directly about the €100,000 loan, they absolutely point to the fact that Grant Thornton are in there.
Yeah, and when you say the only new issue today or no new development, that is related to, I suppose, the process of reviews and you know,
reports.
This, because I touched on this a small bit earlier on, but the most significant aspect of the correspondence and of the statements today is this new piece of information that it would appear now that members of the FAI board, concerns were expressed at an FAI board meeting last Wednesday evening that some press releases issued did not accurately reflect the board's level of awareness of the existence of the €100,000 loan to the association in 2017. Yeah. This is Donald Conway in his letter to Sport Ireland, but that line, a version of that line, was also in the press release today. So again, we have this,
and it's in his opening remarks.
In the opening remarks, and it's in three different places almost. Yeah. So which now leads to exploration of these previous FAI statements too. And the extent to which the board were fully aware or, you know, on top of every missive that was coming out officially from Abbottstown. So I'm almost imagining people listening to this or watching this and sort of thinking just all these names and stuff that's been thrown at you, and what does this all mean, and what's this all about? And I'm conscious, even in terms of writing it, that it's, as much as if you have a knowledge of the subject, you might follow every twist and turn, but maybe people just tuning in from the outside like, what the hell is going on here? So, but to me, that is the most remarkable aspect of this, that a statement from, you know, there's statements casting doubt on previous FAI statements.
Emmett Malone in the Irish Times went back through quickly some of those statements. So the one that jumped out was March 18th. There's one on the 17th of March where John Delaney is quoted as saying, so John Delaney is quoted on the 17th of March as saying, as CEO, I hold regular meetings with our Director of Finance regarding the state of our finances, and all items arising are conveyed to our board at our monthly meetings, and this was the case in 2017. Then the next day, March 18th, again, there's another FAI statement, and it says that the board of the FAI has been kept fully informed in relation to this matter, the loan that is, at all times. So the board of the FAI, they say on March 18th, has been kept informed in relation to this matter at all times. Clearly now, fast forward to today, they're saying that these statements did not accurately reflect the board's level of awareness of the existence of this €100,000 payment to the association. So
even today, and it could be nothing, but even today, the statements, the term bridging loan has been replaced by payment and issue. Yeah. In the missives today. Yeah, it could be nothing or it could be something, but certainly in terms of their previous statements, the FAI are just clearly on the record saying things like the board of the FAI has been fully informed and been kept fully informed in relation to this matter, the loan, at all times. Yeah.
They haven't been told after it's happened, it's at all times. And now here we are in their opening remarks to the Oireachtas saying, by the way, those FAI statements did not accurately reflect what was going on.
And what we also now know as well is that on Wednesday we will have several members of the FAI board there. And again, you're looking at this to say, well, is this were they going to be placed in a position on Wednesday where I guess they may not have been asked specifically about statements, but they were going to be asked probably about their awareness of this issue. And I guess if on Wednesday, if one of those board members was thrown a question and said, well, actually, I didn't know about it. I wasn't 100%, then that is a massive issue. So maybe
to preempt embarrassment almost.
I don't know. I mean, that's just one read of it. Like that option is certainly available. Like it's thrown up, as I said, like all these statements are just throwing up more questions every time.
Doesn't it beg massive questions of the board and of John Delaney's relationship with the board that one or more members, it seems, did not know anything about this loan happening? Like massive questions. That has to be explored in depth on Wednesday.
Yeah, and I think every person there, every board member there, now they're bringing all sorts of people. I think that they actually are bringing Fran Gavin and Rian Doctor along as well too.
Yeah.
And their new finance director is accompanying them as well. It's unclear how many will be sitting at one time. They might have to get some more seats the way things are going. But individual board members who we haven't heard a huge amount from in a public arena over a long period of time are now going to be their fair game for questions too. And I mean, this thing on Wednesday, people are like, what are they going on about this thing on Wednesday? This thing on Wednesday is scheduled for 8 hours, Joe. Like, it's in from 10 till 6, right? With a private session, I think, at 9.
Okay.
So, like, this is... everyone always had that suspicion. And let's be honest, people wondered about it.
What suspicion? About the board?
The people who had the suspicion, to finish that, will they actually turn up? I think that would have been a theory at the start of today. In fact, people were saying, they haven't confirmed who's going yet. Are they not going to show up? So in a way, you're saying, all right, they're going. That's admirable. They're going. Okay, they're going to go and face the questions here.
Yeah.
But the question now is, to what degree are they a united front?
Yeah.
To what degree are they all on the same page?
Yeah.
If certainly it would appear, now there's other people that are on the board too. There was an 11-person board until John Delaney stepped off the board recently. There's still 6 people who won't be there, I guess, who've been a part of the process.
So let's just again make it very simple for people. There is Mazars, the global auditing and consulting group, and in the FAI's own words, they are conducting an independent and in-depth external review of all matters. So Mazars is the big picture, all matters. Grant Thornton, it seems, are looking at the books and the ledgers and the records, and that is more about this €100,000 loan. So it will be interesting on Wednesday if, when asked about the loan, they say, well, we have to wait for the Grant Thornton report. At which point, someone in the committee will say, well, surely between ye lot there, somebody knows what the deal was, because John Delaney, you gave the loan, and one of you must have known it was happening. So that remains to be seen. There is also then the Jonathan Hall Associates.
Oh, this is the one,
report.
yeah.
This could be
the Senior Management Review, Joe.
Sorry.
Give it its full title.
Okay, so Mazars is post all these executive vice president stuff, and Grant Thornton we only know about today. But Jonathan Hall Associates was the big report, which after the Gibraltar game, John Delaney's
March 2019.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hall Associates,
okay.
March 2019.
So they cited this as the reason behind the John Delaney move, and so that report again, I presume, leaked is not the word. It's just been published today.
Again, it's been given to the Oireachtas TDs. They needed that information. I think it was said previously that they would be furnished with this review before the committee came in.
Yeah. Flicking through it, and you flicked through it as well, largely it's in keeping with what the FAI have said. The CEO role was getting too big. John Delaney was doing 2 or 3 jobs. Best practice, corporate governance, yada, 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 yada. What jumped out at you was the suggested timeline.
Timeline to me. The timeline to me is a doozy.
Yeah.
You have to scroll all the way down. You have to get through the rest of the report.
Basically the last paragraph.
Recommendation 10, decision time frame.
Yeah.
Snappy. A possible outline time frame is 22nd of March. Board meeting to consider the report and decide on the way forward.
22nd of March being the day before Gibraltar away.
Yes, day before Gibraltar. 23rd of March, the day of the Gibraltar game.
Yeah.
23rd of March, very specific. 23rd of March, 23.
Yeah.
Potential announcement on the way forward. Okay, and they just chose to adopt that recommendation. The next part, April. Commence the recruitment process for the new chief executive. Just April.
I mean,
1, 2, 3. How many days in April? You can do all of them.
All of them.
I mean, 22 and 23 are big dates. All of April is up for grabs.
It's worth saying, across the report, there were
April, May, June.
There were not many specific dates.
Lacked a bit on the specific date front.
The only specific date, 2 dates really given, were 22nd of March and 23rd of March.
And I mean, then again, you know, July AGM, don't even have the date of that, even though it's already scheduled. It's in trim. Opportunity for a symbolic handover from the current chief executive to the new chief executive in front of the members.
There's no explanation, by the way, if you're wondering, as to why the 22nd of March and 23rd of March were picked out so specifically as the reasons for this handover.
No, maybe like they'll give us that recommendation. Maybe they received this was sent into them on the 21st of March or something, you know? Like the report is written for the board of the FAI. They plan to discuss it at a meeting on the 22nd of March 2019. Yeah. That information is included there. But I mean, that's the day before a game in Gibraltar. It's unclear to me. I was at the game in Gibraltar on the 23rd. I didn't see every FEI board member at the game, but of course, as we made the point at the time, I mean, there is modern forms of communication. You can buzz it all in. You can, if you're not there, you always be phoned in. But it strikes me as unusual that on foreign soil you would conduct a meeting discussing this topic. It just strikes me as odd.
Like, come on, it's laughable.
It strikes me as laughable. Take your words.
It's absolutely laughable that they think this thing is credible.
It's definitely...
Isn't it, though?
You can poke away at it here, I think, with considerable comfort. Like, the fact that there's just... as I said, maybe they said we need this by our meeting on Friday, and that's why the timeline was just, okay, 22nd. Possible, even right, 22nd of March, let's just take the first part of it. Take the first part of it. They're having a board meeting on Friday, the 22nd. Okay, fair enough, 23rd. But you, at that point you would say, well, listen, the game's on Saturday. So, I mean, let's just wait for the sake of the team till the 2 games are out of the way. And then next Wednesday, say that the Georgia match in Dublin was the 26th of March.
Yeah. We don't want to revoke, I don't know, a tennis ball protest.
Yes. So, in the event that such a thing would occur. So, we will discuss it in like, for example, John Delaney told us that Martin O'Neill's position previously was discussed on the day before the game against Denmark in Aarhus back in November. Now, naturally, he had to manage the team the following day. Yeah. But, you know, decisions were taken that were waited until the international window was over until you implement them. But I mean, what management review decides to send it? And maybe people would say we're focusing too much on this one thing, and there's a broader point.
No, it's actually telling in so many ways. If so much of what the FAI are going to say on Wednesday will revolve around, well, we have to wait for reports and reviews, and Jonathan Hall Associates was a big report. I think actually a good hour should be devoted to this 22nd of March, 23rd of March business, because people are sceptical about these reports, all of these reports, because they're commissioned by the FAI. And that is not credible, I don't think, in the eyes of a lot of people.
Yeah, and I mean, reading the Jonathan Hall report, the Jonathan Hall report certainly seems to be very much in line with a lot of the FAI statements of the previous period.
It very much tallies with everything the FAI.
The members of the FAI board may have, been taken aback, but the Jonathan Hall report certainly seems to tie in with all of them.
Yeah.
There's a few interesting lines in it, I have to say.
Yeah, go on. We've about 90 seconds.
Point 12 stands out for me. This was point 12 in, just got the heading, interview feedback, because they spoke to a number of people about interview and how they would conduct this handover and so on. Number 12, if the FAI decide to go ahead with the 2 roles rather than 1, then this should be explained to the current chief executive and ideally done in a consensual way. Point 12. I like that one as well.
So that's the gist of all the news today. There's plenty of it. That's going to be in all the papers tomorrow. And
it will. I mean, and it's even more because it's very hard to pick through really all the details of. But then we've got 8 hours of this on Wednesday, so the whole thing is just going to speed along, or speed along and then chug down a bit. Yeah.
I'd say Jonathan Hall, come along if you're around on Wednesday.
Listen, they're bringing 8 or 9 in, so why not bring in a 10th?
Yeah. Eden Hazard scored 2nd for Chelsea, by the way, in added time, so they're going to win that game. 2-0 against West Ham, final few moments there. Now, we'll park all that for the time being. After the break, we'll be checking in with Leon Blanche from our football sponsor, Boyle Sports. And naturally, in the course of this discussion, we will be referring to betting odds and to gambling. Remember to gamble sensibly. For more, check out gambleaware.ie or visit dunlewy.net. And if it's not your cup of tea, then that's no problem as well. But we're going to talk to Leon Blanche ahead of the Champions League football next.
Off the Ball on News Talk.
The big Easter sale is on now at appliancesdelivered.ie with up to 40% off the entire range, which means that I can roll out my eggiest Easter puns, like cracking offers, extreme savings and shocking deals. Okie dokie, there's €100 off a Whirlpool 9kg washing machine, now just $399. The Dyson V10 Absolute, only $499. Or the Samsung 40-inch UHD TV was $549, now $399. And there's free delivery on selected products. Start saving now at appliancesdelivered.ie.
Life feels better when you know your loved ones are being looked after. Well, now you can protect your family's future for just €10.10 per month with Leia Life Insurance. Simply answer a few short questions.